Have you ever been betrayed by a friend? How did it impact you? And how did you navigate the aftermath? Can you recover a friendship from a betrayal? Or does the act of betrayal permanently alter the dynamics and trust between who betrayed and who was betrayed? Are there circumstances in which betrayal could be justified or perhaps even understood? Can you forgive someone who has betrayed you? Join me after the intro as I reflect on the consequences of betrayal in friendships and how we can overcome it. So grab a cup of coffee, settle in, and let's start. Hi, I'm Rossana D, and this is Forgive and Thrive, a podcast where we explore what thriving in life means and how we can achieve it, irrespective of our past, current condition, and expectations that those around us or society in general may have. Let's go. Welcome to the Forgive and Thrive show. Betrayal can strike at the very heart of our lives, as I've personally experienced. I felt betrayed not only by my organization, but as part of the same situation, also by a colleague who, up until that point, had been my closest friend. Friendship is a cherished bond built on trust, loyalty, and shared experiences. However, the painful reality is that sometimes this foundation can crumble under the weight of betrayal. Betrayal is as universal as any other human experience. And if you ask 100 people if they ever experience some form of betrayal, chances are that the large majority will answer, yes, dear, I know all about it very well. One of my favorite Italian proverbs says, mal comune mezzo gaudio, which has a similar meaning of the English proverb, troubles shared are trouble halved. Or if you prefer, that there is some form of relief in troubles that comes from those troubles to be common to so many. And betrayal certainly is. But being so common doesn't make healing from it any easier. And studies seem to confirm this fact. I was recently reading a study that was performed by interviewing 4,000 people who felt betrayed at some point in their lives. Results showed that 67% of them prevented themselves from forming deep relationships because they were afraid of being hurt again. 84% of them said that they were unable to trust others, and 90% of them wanted to move forward, but they didn't know how. So, are troubles shared truly trouble halved? Well, I've been betrayed and I cannot completely rejoice for it quite yet, simply because so many others have experienced or are experiencing the same. But in my case, the profound emotional impact of this double and intertwined betrayal, partly caused by the organization I work for and that colleague and former friend of mine at the same time, has been an arduous journey so far. One that I'm only just beginning to emerge from. So today we want to reflect on what it means being betrayed by a close friend and how we can turn the narrative around, find solace, and ultimately heal from it. This is a topic that speaks to our shared vulnerabilities, accounts for the complex stance of trust and deception in our relationships, and takes me and you with me on a quest for healing and personal growth in the aftermath of such a profound breach. It's a narrative that underscores the deeply personal and often intertwined nature of betrayal in both our professional and personal lives, illustrating the enduring quest for recovery and renewal. First of all, am I done with that experience? Have I healed from it? Well, to be honest, I'm not sure I have completely healed. But I've certainly come a long way from that initial realization that what I knew my life to be was going to be no more. Whatever your story is, if you have ever experienced betrayal, you are too well aware that betrayal cuts deep and lingers long after the initial realization and shock. Oh, shock, yes, you heard me well. You couldn't embrace yourself because you never saw it coming. You didn't have the guard up because you thought you were safe. It never crossed your mind that the person you care for and trusted and disclosed your deepest fears and wildest dream and felt safe with would ever contemplate hurting you. And because of that, you gave your heart, your love, your friendship, your loyalty, your trust to them. And then one day, out of the blue, something happens, or you make a painful discovery. And that one life-altering moment gets forever tattooed on your mind and on your heart. It's as if that person that you loved and trusted just took off a mask, revealing who they are or they have always been. Your heart breaks, and the pain is so raw, so real, so consuming that you can barely breathe. And you start questioning everything and everyone, including yourself, starting from yourself. How did this happen? How could I let this happen? How could I be so blind? How could I be so stupid? How could I not see this coming? You feel rejected, alone, and abandoned to an unfair destiny that was never meant to be yours. You lose trust in others and yourself. You don't know what to think. You don't know what to feel. You don't know what to do. The only thing you know for sure is that life will never be the same. That something changed forever the course of it. You feel like that beautiful, fine vase that you wear has been broken in 1,000 pieces. That's what it feels like to be blindsided by betrayal. Any form of betrayal, regardless of the context and the relationship you had with the person or people who betrayed you was. Like any meaningful relationships, friendships are built on trust and loyalty. The intrinsic understanding that a friend is someone you can confide in, rely on, and share life's ups and downs with is what makes this bond so special, right? So when a friend betrays you, it's as though an earthquake has shaken the very foundation of your life and of that connection. It's like having the rug pulled out from under your feet. Betrayal unleashes a plethora of emotions: hurt, disappointment, anger, disbelief, the shock of realizing that a person you consider a confidant and you trusted implicitly has breached that trust can be profoundly painful. And unfortunately, the emotional toll of betrayal often extends far beyond that initial act. Feelings of hurt and disappointment can cause emotional scars that might take a considerable amount of time to heal. The shock and sadness experienced can morph into resentment and even anger, adding complexity to the emotional aftermath. I've read a lot about betrayal because I needed more than overthinking my situation. I hoped I could gather facts, ideas, tools, and strategies that could wipe away the pain I deeply felt and cracked open my heart. The first discovery I made is that very often betrayal is considered and addressed for what it causes, which is essentially the loss of trust in the person who betrayed us, and often also the loss of relationship that we had with them. And as such, it is considered often as a form of grief. So I started to look into grief, hoping to find the answers I needed. What I quickly realized was that betrayal is so much more than an experience that leaves us grieving for something. And as such, working it out as it was simply grief could have fallen short of addressing the betrayal I experienced. Healing for betrayal is very different from healing from any other life crisis. The death of a loved one, a disease, a natural disaster, as painful as these experiences can be. With any crisis, we grieve, we are sad, we mourn, but with time, eventually we heal. But because betrayal feels so intentional, it feels also so very personal. And the whole self has to be rebuilt. Belonging, confidence, worthiness, trust, they all have to be rebuilt. Time alone doesn't heal you from betrayal. That's a tough lesson to learn, but also a very powerful one if you think about it, because it's up to you to decide whether or not you want to heal and rise again above that betrayal. But let's go step by step. So first of all, what are the emotional costs of betrayal? I already mentioned something, but for my personal experience, I can say without a doubt that the emotional cost of betrayal especially when it comes from a very close friend, is often a profound and an enduring burden that can have far-reaching effects on an individual's well-being and very likely impact their outlook on relationships. I have identified at least 10 major types of emotional response that we develop and move through when navigating betrayal as we move through 3 different stages of the journey. In the immediate aftermath, after realizing the betrayal, we face a first stage filled with confusion. When we are betrayed, we want answers to questions like, why? Why has this happened? In the stage of confusion, we develop shock and disbelief, hurt, disappointment, anger, and resentment. So the initial response is definitely shock and disbelief. When a trusted friend or colleague breaches that trust, it's like if a sudden rupture in the fabric of our reality has just been made. The mind struggles to process what has just happened. We are often led to confusion and incredulity. Then we develop a deep and profound sense of hurt. The emotional bond that once existed is now broken. And you feel the pain of this breakage, which leaves you with a heavy heart and a sense of loss. Betrayal by a friend or colleague also brings a heavy cloud of disappointment. The person who betrayed you was someone you trusted and relied on. The disappointment comes not only from the act itself, but also from the fact that your expectations of their loyalty were completely shattered. And then finally, we develop anger and resentment. As the shock subsides, these feelings start to surface. The betrayal can evoke a deep sense of injustice, and if you are like most human beings, perhaps even a desire for retribution. These emotions, if left unaddressed, can become detrimental to one's emotional well-being. In the state of confusion, betrayal makes us focus outward. We are consumed with trying to understand someone else's behavior. We are consumed with trying to make sense of their choices. But we cannot change the past, and we cannot control what others do or say. To begin healing from that betrayal, we must turn inward. It's our work and responsibility to understand ourselves and our choices, not others. After the period of confusion, we move to the second state of being, which is the state of worthlessness. In my experience, I thought I gave everything to my job, to my organization, and to that best friend. And instead of being treated with equal care, I was put on a side to rot by my organization and left behind and completely unsupported by that friend and colleague, to whom I was the line manager once, and who, while I was recovering from a burnout, took over my job, the team we built together from scratch, changed its name, and moved it across from one section to another of the department, all of which I could perfectly live with. But, and that's where I felt the betrayal, in doing so, they also left me behind, in a context where I no longer made sense on my own, where I had no support and protection to go back to work in the safest manner possible. I was completely cut off and felt as my job and career were seriously jeopardized. I felt my future had been stolen by the careless behaviors of a few people. In all that, I didn't know who I was anymore. One day I was a senior scientist and team leader within a world-leading organization. The next day, I suddenly found myself on one side, useless, hurt, replaced. It's so hard to wake up every morning and realize that the commitment, hard work, and the 80 hours long work weeks meant absolutely nothing. In this phase, we develop self-doubt, grief and loss, anxiety, and loss of self. So self-doubt, this is a tough one because you may start questioning your own judgment, wondering how you could have been so wrong about someone. This self-doubt can erode your self-esteem and your confidence, further impacting your emotional stability. Betrayal often carries with it a sense of grief and loss. It's not just the loss of the relationship, it's also the loss of the version of that person that you believed in. This grieving process can be emotional taxing, like mourning a significant loss. The emotional cost of betrayal can also lead to forms of anxiety. For example, hypervigilance, which is a state of heightened alertness. You find yourself constantly monitoring others' behaviors, looking for signs of potential betrayal. This state of hyper-awareness can be exhausting at best and obviously contribute to anxiety, as it keeps you in a perpetual state of apprehension. It can lead to social anxiety by eroding your confidence in social situations. You may fear that people will eventually let you down or betray your trust, which can make it difficult to engage in social interactions, form new connections, or deepen the ones you already have. But the most profound and often overlooked aspect of betrayal is the loss of self. This loss is particularly insidious because it tends to be buried beneath layers of shame and confusion. It encompasses a spectrum of profound losses, each of which carries emotional weight and significance. In this state, betrayal pulls us outward. We desperately search for a word or a sign that will establish the sense of who we are. An important step in healing that I discovered in my own journey is to reflect on our own role and the responsibility that we had in what happened. As painful as it sounds, we always hold some responsibilities in the events that brought to that betrayal. And it's up to us to pause and reflect on what happened and understand what role we had in that story. And so I started to look for those things. And what I began to uncover was that I had been really insecure. I admired this friend of mine, their self-reassurance, their confidence, the ease they could jump on new things and making their wings on their way down, their determination to get where they wanted to be at whatever cost and by using any means at their disposal. In contrast, I was very insecure. I was good at what I was doing simply because I was working longer and harder than many others. I felt I was the greatest imposter of all times, working for a world-leading organization. And when I was asked about it, I always said, I'm so lucky to be part of that. That was not Rosanna being humble. It was the imposter in Rosanna saying, I'm here by chance, rather than I'm right where I deserve to be. I'm not there because I won a lottery ticket or because someone handed me a job that I didn't deserve or I wasn't good enough to do. And so with that insecurity, I let them take over events, even when I was their line manager, even when I felt that their way was not the best way. So I was insecure. Then I asked myself, where that insecurity comes from? What is its foundation? So my role was rooted in my lack of confidence. And going a layer deeper, the root of a lack of self-confidence is a lack of self-love. I had this profound moment when I thought that if I can learn how to love myself, I will certainly set myself on a new path in life, in my career, in love, and in any type of relationship that I can have from now on. This journey is still ongoing, to be honest, and I think it will never end. I have to say, it's quite a challenging journey. And if you find it also challenging, then you can start from liking yourself more. I had a wonderful conversation with Alan Castell on that very topic. You just need to click on the link above to listen to my conversation with Alan. As we move out of the state of worthlessness, we move into the third state of being, which is the state of powerlessness, where we feel the whole weight of the unfairness and justice that the betrayal has brought onto us. Everything looks unfair and unjust from where we stand, and no one is doing anything about it. And while our life has been completely destroyed, they happily just move on with their life as nothing happened. During this phase, we develop trust issues, and if we are not careful, long-term effects on our emotional well-being. Obviously, when someone you deeply trusted betrays you, it can shatter your faith in the reliability of others. You may become more guarded and cautious in your interactions with others, and as such, develop trust issues. You will find it challenging to trust new people, or perhaps even those that you have known for a quite a long time. This can in turn strain your other relationships and the ability to form new ones. But the most and more profound effect on a longer term is obviously on your general emotional well-being. Betrayal from a friend or a colleague can leave long-lasting emotional scars. These experiences can affect future relationships, making it challenging to trust others, as we just said, but also potentially causing issues like anxiety, depression, or even PTSD. Many may feel themselves repeatedly ruminating on the betrayal that they experienced. I know I did, and still do, but time to time, to be honest. Going over the details of that event, the who, the what, the why, cannot help us. These intrusive thoughts can keep the emotional wounds fresh and prevent from healing. In this phase, you also get to a point where you can no longer stand the situation, but at the same time, you are too hurt to wait for something to happen. One minute you go into the I have to do something mode. The next, you feel completely stuck. One moment you are energized, trying to change your reality. The next, you feel completely defeated. One minute you try to control everything. The next, you feel controlled by whatever happens in your daily life. One minute your voice is loud. The next, it's silenced. In this phase, betrayal tends to put us outward, to focus on everything that is outside us. So we use the little energy that the betrayal has left into us to control everything in our ecosystem. The problem is that there are a few things that we can control, and these are mostly related to us. We cannot control the world around us or others. So one of the dangers at this point is that we could isolate or limit the circle of our influence in an attempt to control it. I believe this is where I am at the moment, and have been for some time, to be honest. In my powerlessness, I've been putting effort and a lot of my time and focus, trying to convince my organization to learn from what happened to me, the before, during, and after periods. What went well? Well, hardly anything, or I wouldn't be here, right? And what went wrong? I would say quite a few things, as well as what can be done, added, adjusted, or changed to make sure that no one else will ever go through the same type of experience that I had. How is it going? Well, slower than I hoped. And even though I intellectually know that I cannot control what another person does, let alone an entire organization, I'm not yet at the point where the focus is completely on myself. I believe that embracing and embodying that and putting all my focus on myself will eventually take me on the final mile out of the tunnel. So based on my research of this topic and reflection on my own experiences, these are the 10 emotional responses that we are likely going to develop out of betrayal. All of this, the loss of self, was by far the most surprising for me. And by its nature, it's also perhaps the most insidious and difficult to heal from, which in turn makes healing from betrayal a nightmare for many. What does it mean, loss of self, you may ask? Well, I believe there are 4 possible ways for that loss of self to happen after a betrayal. The first is the loss of innocence. Betrayal can strip away the filter that is a mix of positivity and naivety through which we view the world. It's as if the curtains is drawn back, revealing a reality that is far more complex and often disappointing than we thought. This loss of innocence can be emotionally taxing, leading to a sense of disillusionment and vulnerability. It's like when your child discovers for the first time that not only Santa Claus doesn't fly on a sleigh pulled by reindeers, he actually doesn't exist, and the toys that they find under the Christmas tree were not made in the North Pole, but bought at the local mall. Shocking. The second loss is loss of identity. Betrayal can profoundly impact one's sense of identity. The actions of a friend, colleague, or loved one can challenge the very essence of who we are. This loss of identity is a deeply personal and introspective struggle. It often leads to questioning our own values, beliefs, and purpose, as the betrayal forces us to confront not only the actions of the betrayer, but also our own choices and judgments, as well as responsibility, as I mentioned before. Did we have a role in what happened? Did we do something wrong to them that make them react this way? Could we have done something to prevent it? Self-doubts can become truly consuming. The third form of loss is loss of role and reputation. The loss of self also extends to the roles we play in all other relationships, the place we hold in an organization or society, and the reputation we have built over time. Betrayal can tarnish the roles we have embraced, whether as a trusted friend, a loyal colleague, or a loving partner. The reputation we have cultivated can be damaged, and it becomes challenging to reconcile this tarnishing image with the one we have carefully crafted over the years. The fourth and final loss is the loss of being seen and heard. This is another aspect of betrayal, when we feel invisible and unheard. When someone close to us betrays us, our trust, it can make us question whether our thoughts, our feelings, and our opinions were truly acknowledged and valued. The betrayal can lead to a sense of isolation and loneliness, as we battle with the feeling of not being seen or heard by those who matter most or used to. Each of these losses, entwined with the shame and self-doubt that betrayals often brings, contributes to the overall erosion of one's self-esteem and emotional well-being. The journey of healing from a betrayal needs to address all these losses and find ways to rebuild not only trust in others, but also the trust in ourselves. One aspect that should not be underestimated is the need to talk about what happened again and again and again, but not with anybody. Find someone that is there just to listen, not to judge you or to tell you what to do. Because when you experience a massive sense of injustice, there is nothing one can do or say to make you feel whole again. Part of the healing process is having someone to talk with, so you can go through what happened over and over again in a safe and supportive environment. The ideal person would be a professional therapist, not only because they have the tools to help you navigate that experience, but they are also less likely to burn out of it. Any person around us who is not a therapist could get burned out after a while and just tell you, oh no, please, I cannot listen to this again. Nothing is changing, right? And this is because betrayal is an ambiguous form of grief. We all get grief. When you lose someone, as hard as it can be, you can accept their loss and slowly start to move on. But with a betrayal, no one is actually dead. So for someone listening to your story over and over it again, it's difficult to see any progress. But for you it's different. For you, it's a real grief, where the life you once had is gone forever. Let's pause for a moment here. If you are going through a post-betrayal phase, if possible, seek for the professional help you need. And don't be disheartened by the little understanding you may find in people around you. They don't have the tools to support you in that journey. If you are on the other side instead, and you are trying to support someone who has been betrayed, then be patient. Refrain from telling them what to do. Just listen to them without judging. They have all the answers in themselves. They only need to go over and over and over that situation until they uncover them. I would say that a big challenge is that betrayal, by its nature, takes us to turn our focus outward on the people and the environment that we have around us. In my quest to heal from that betrayal experience, I work on the state of confusion by getting a personal understanding of the why things happened. Whether that understanding is spot on or not is quite frankly beyond the point of healing from the betrayal. And for what it has not been understood yet, I rest my case. I stopped trying to make sense of something that didn't make sense. If I was back at the start of the healing process today, with the knowledge I gained so far, I would perhaps waste no time in sorting out the sense of confusion and make sense of behaviors of others. And instead, I would concentrate making sense of my life and trying to make intentional choices on how I wanted that life to be like. Healing from my betrayal requires that we turn focus inward as we move through these 3 different phases, so we can rediscover our value, we can redefine who we are, and then we can recover our power so we can reclaim our own voice. I'm learning to no longer question my worth as a friend, colleague, and employee. I'm trying to ground myself in my truths. I know I was a supportive friend and colleague. I was there when they needed, and I stepped forward to protect them, their job, and their reputation when it was required, even though they ignored that to this day. I also know that I'm a good employee, one of value for my organization, whether people there can see it or not. I stopped craving recognitions and praise, as well as investing time with anybody that crosses my path. Instead, I invest selectively into people and things that validate my worth, and through that, support my well-being, enrich me, recharge my batteries, and expand my understanding, my knowledge, my compassion, my empathy, and my human worth. To regain my power, I continuously check with myself whether the situation in hand is in my control or out of it, or if I can change it or not. And if I cannot control or change it, then I make sure I can let it go. Because whenever we focus and pull all our energy on things that are out of our control or we cannot do anything about, we feel powerless. So I'm leading into everything where I could create change and I could use my voice, my knowledge, and expertise to help others. It's a complex process that requires self-compassion, introspection, and the courage to reclaim the sense of self that was overshadowed by that betrayal. It takes a lot of work, especially because it's not always a straight line process, but nonetheless, totally worth it. That said, and with the caveat and understanding that each story is different and no one can make that decision for you, if you decide to go ahead with understanding, you will ultimately learn how to keep your heart open while it's breaking, which offers you probably the greatest opportunity for growth. In my case, if gaining that understanding has brought anything at all, is some level of compassion for the colleague and former friend. I don't condone or justify some of the actions. I can see why they did what they did, although I firmly believe they could have achieved exactly the same result without affecting my life and my career. In fact, supporting mine while growing their own. That understanding and the compassion I gained were instrumental to embrace forgiveness, to forgive them for their behavior and myself for having allowed them to affect me so much by giving them so much power over myself. Whether we understand their reasons or willing to do so, we all face the same conundrum after a betrayal, when we need to figure out if and how the relationship with the person who betrayed you needs to change, evolve into, and be renegotiated. I wish there was a one-fits-all solution to that, a strategy that each of us can apply each single time we need to renegotiate the terms of that relationship and ready to go. But every situation, as we said, is different, and you are the only one who can make the decision. The one aspect to bear in mind is how safe you feel around them. In my case, I had to realize that the event that affected me terribly was only the latest of many less impacting, perhaps, situations that should have informed me of their true colors long before. Friendship cannot be just a good laughter over a dinner when things look good. Friendship for me is standing by your friend's side, whatever the situation, and even more so when they are in need. With that in mind, I wish them all the best for the future, but make clear that I didn't want to take that relationship any further. Not only you have the right to place boundaries with others, especially those that repeatedly affect you in a negative way, create situations that disempower you and or destroy your sense of worth. It's your responsibility to do so. Boundaries and expectations naturally define the contours of that friendship. However, it's within these boundaries and expectations that the shadow of betrayal can sometimes emerge, testing the strength of these bonds. The emotional cost of betrayal is undoubtedly significant and often leaves deep scars in its wake. It can be a journey fraught with pain, confusion, and a sense of profound loss, as we already mentioned. However, as part of that painful experience, a unique opportunity for personal growth and self-discovery also emerges. Overcoming betrayal is not a simple or swift process. It's one that demands resilience and introspection. This resilience is the inner strength that allows us to navigate our emotions, to pick up the pieces, and to carry on. It's a testament to the human spirit's ability to endure and persevere. Self-reflection becomes a crucial companion on this journey. It's the process of delving into the depths of our own emotions and actions, seeking to understand not just the betrayal itself, but also our own role in that situation. Self-reflection offers a unique vantage point for introspecting about personal boundaries, values, and the dynamics of trust and vulnerability. In this process, we can often achieve a great understanding about ourselves. We come to realize our strengths, our vulnerabilities, and the areas where personal growth perhaps is needed. This self-discovery can lead to a profound transformation, not just in recovering from the emotional wounds of betrayal, but also in building healthier boundaries and forging more resilient, fulfilling relationships going forward. The journey of healing and growth following betrayal showcases the potential for individuals to emerge from the darkness of betrayal with newfound insights and a stronger sense of self, and the ability to navigate future relationships with wisdom and grace. It's a testament to the resilience of the human heart, showing that even in the face of profound pain, there is a potential for healing and growth. You can undo your betrayal. What we can do, however, is to decide how long it affects our relationships, our health, our work, and our lives. There is a gift that any betrayal brings, and that gift is to lay the foundation for transformation. If we are willing to use the experience as an opportunity to learn and grow. Rebuilding is always a choice, your choice. Whether you only focus on rebuilding yourself and moving on, or provided the condition allows it, you are willing to rebuild also entirely the relationship with the person who hurt you. Relationship that, however, needs to be renegotiated in light of that betrayal is entirely up to you. Healing from a close friend betrayal isn't easy. In fact, as Heather Buer said, the worst pain in the world goes beyond the physical, even farther beyond any emotional pain one can feel. It is the betrayal of a friend. With that in mind, exercise patience towards yourself, appreciation towards yourself for the journey done so far, and grace for whatever is left, trusting that you will get to the promised land. And the promised land, which I can almost see at the horizon, and where I hope I will soon end up, is a state of complete healing from that experience. And with that, you learn to love again, to trust again, to feel safe again, to open your heart again. When you heal, you learn that even though it was done to you, it wasn't about you. When you heal, you see a version of yourself emerging that would have never shown up had that experience not happened. Do you have a story of betrayal and find it difficult to reemerge from it? If so, I really hope that you find my reflections and personal journey so far useful to understand where you are in your own personal journey and what you need to do right now to move forward. As always, if you have been affected in any way by the topic we discussed today, please seek professional help. Join me next time when we will continue exploring inspiring and challenging situations. Because remember, we are together in this journey. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this content, subscribe to our channel and don't forget to hit the notification bell and like this video. See you in the next one.